Hello there to all my sixth graders. I am about to um, read for you the last selection that you have to read out of your reading textbooks. Yay! You should be getting to a point of getting to the end of or beginning to wrap up the last couple weeks here of your kind of virtual assignments, I guess you could call them. And I just wanted to go ahead and read for you the challenge. And so if you would open your reading books to page 300, since I'm going to be reading it and not recording, not playing a recording, I am not going to hold the book up the whole time. But I will show you what it looks like on the pages that we're starting with. So open up your reading books to page 200, and it's called The Challenge. And so on page 200, you have information about the author, Gary Soto, and the illustrator's name is David Diaz. All right, so I'm going to start on page, I totally had the page number wrong. 300, 300, and 301. Sorry, I apologize. All right, so the challenge actually comes from a collection of stories that Gary Soto wrote entitled Local News. And so it says at the bottom of page 301, strategy focus, Jose's bragging gets the attention of Estella, the new girl, but not in the way he expects. As you read, think of questions about the story to discuss with your classmates. And since we can't do that, you can send them in the comments or message me on Google Classroom, and we can talk about some questions that you might have about this story. And so we already kind of have a clue here that Jose is the main character, and he's going to get himself into trouble by bragging. I'm sure none of you have ever had that happen before, right? All right, so now we're at the top of 302, so follow with me, please. For 3 weeks, Jose tried to get the attention of Estella, the new girl at his middle school. She's cute, he said to himself when he first saw her in the cafeteria, unloading her lunch of 2 sandwiches, potato chips, a piece of cake wrapped in wax paper, and boxed juice from a brown paper bag. Man, can she grub. On the way home from school, he walked through the alleys of his town, Fresno, kicking cans. He was lost in a dream, trying to figure out a way to make Estella notice him. He thought of tripping in front of her while she was leaving her math class, but he had already tried that with a girl in 6th grade. All he did was rip his pants and bruise his knee, which kept him from playing in the championship soccer game. And that girl had just stepped over him as he lay on the ground, the shame of rejection reddening in his face. He thought of going up to Estella and saying in his best James Bond voice, "Camacho, Jose Camacho, at your service." He imagined she would say, "Righto," and together they would go off and talk in code. I think Jose has a big imagination. He even tried doing his homework. That's a great idea. Estella was in history class, and so he knew she was as bright as a flashlight shining in your face. That's a good example of figurative language. It's a simile. Compares Estella to a flashlight because she's so bright. While they were studying Egypt, Jose amazed the teacher, Mrs. Flores, when he scored 20 out of 20 on a quiz, and then 18 out of 20 when she retested him the same day because she thought that he had cheated. I think that means that Jose doesn't typically study and doesn't typically make really good grades, but he's trying to impress Estella, so I guess he can do it, right? Mrs. Flores, I studied hard. De veras. You can call my mom, he argued, his feelings hurt. And he had studied, so much that his mother had asked, "Que paso? What's wrong?" "I'm going to start studying," he'd answered. His mother bought him a lamp because she didn't want him to strain his eyes. She even fixed him hot chocolate and watched her son learn about the Egyptian god Osiris, about papyrus and mummification. The mummies had scared her so much that she had heated up a second cup of chocolate to soothe herself. But when the quizzes had been returned and Jose bragged, "Another A plus," Estella didn't turn her head and ask, "Who's that brilliant boy?" She just stuffed her quiz into her backpack and left the classroom, leaving Jose behind to retake the test. Now, that could mean several things. I wonder what you're thinking. Does it mean that she didn't do well on her quiz, or she's not interested in how he did? We just kind of have to keep looking at our clues and paying attention here. One weekend, he had wiped out while riding his bike. Wiped out while riding your bike means you had a wreck, right? Popping up over curbs with his eyes closed, he somersaulted over his handlebars and saw a flash of shooting stars as he felt the slap of his skin against the asphalt. Blood rushed from his nostrils like twin rivers. He bicycled home, his blood-darkened shirt pressed to his nose. When he examined his face in the mirror, he saw that he had a scrape on his chin, and he liked that. He thought Estella might pity him. In history class, she would cry, "Oh, what happened?" And then he would talk nonsense about a fight with 3 guys. Now, remember the beginning of the story said that Jose was going to get into some trouble by bragging? I think we're already kind of hearing what his plans are. Let's see what happens. But Estella had been absent the Monday and Tuesday after his mishap. By the time she returned on Wednesday, his chin had nearly healed. Well, that didn't happen, did it? Jose figured out another way to get to know her. He had noticed the grimy, sweat-blackened handle of a racket poking out of her backpack. He snapped his fingers and said to himself, "Racquetball. I'll challenge her to a game." He approached her during lunch. She was reading from her science book and biting into her second sandwich, which was thick with slabs of meat, cheese, and a blood-red tomato. "Hi," Jose said, sitting across the table from her. "How do you like our school?" Estella swallowed, cleared her throat, drank from her milk carton until it collapsed, and said, "It's okay. But the hot water doesn't work in the girls' showers." "It doesn't work in ours either," he remarked. Trying to push the conversation along, he continued, "Where are you from?" "San Diego," she said. She took another monstrous bite of her sandwich, which amazed Jose and made him think of his father, a carpenter who could eat more than anyone Jose knew. Jose, eager to connect, took a deep breath and said, "I see that you play racquetball. You want to play a game?" I think Jose admires her appetite. He likes a girl who could eat. She must be strong. She's athletic. He just seems to be mesmerized by anything at all about Estella, right? "Are you good?" Stella asked flatly. She picked up a slice of tomato that had slid out of her sandwich. "Pretty good," he said without thinking as he slipped into a lie. "I won a couple of tournaments." Uh-oh. I'm beginning to think about how this is going to work out for Jose. He watched as the tomato slice slithered down Estella's throat. She wiped her mouth and said, "Sure, how about after school on Friday?" "That's tomorrow," Jose said. "That's right. Today's Thursday and tomorrow's Friday." She flattened the empty milk carton with her fist, slapped her science book closed, and hurled the carton and her balled-up lunch bag at the plastic-lined garbage can. "What's your name?" "Camacho." "Jose Camacho." "I'm Estella. My friends call me Stinger." "Stinger?" "Yeah, Stinger. I'll meet you at the courts at 3:45. She got up and headed toward the library. After school, Jose pedaled his bike over to his Uncle Freddie's house. His uncle was 16, only 3 years older than Jose. It made Jose feel awkward when someone, usually a girl, asked, "Who's that hunk?" And he would have to answer, "My uncle." "Freddie," Jose yelled, skidding to a stop. "Freddie," Jose yelled, skidding to a stop in the driveway. We're at the top of 307 in case you've zoned out. Freddie was in the garage lifting weights. He was dressed in sweats and a sweatshirt, the hem of his t-shirt sticking out in a fringe. He bench pressed 180 pounds, then put the weight down and said, "Hey, dude." "Freddie, I need to borrow your racket," Jose said. Freddie rubbed his sweaty face on the sleeve of his sweatshirt. "I didn't know you played." "I don't. I got a game tomorrow. But you don't know how to play." Jose had been worrying about this on his bike ride over. He told Estella that he had won tournaments. Now, I think she's going to find out that he hasn't played before. I'm just saying. "I'll learn," Jose said. in one day? Get serious. It's against a girl, so she'll probably whip you 21 to nada. No way. But Jose's mind twisted with worry. What if she did? He asked himself. What if she whipped him through and through? He recalled her crushing the milk carton with one blow of her fist. He recalled the sandwiches she downed at lunch. Still, he had never encountered a girl who was better than he was at sports, except for Dolores Ramirez, who could hit homers with the best of them. Uncle Freddie pulled his racket from the garage wall. Then he explained to Jose how to grip the racket. He told him that the game was like handball, that the play was off the front, the ceiling, and the side walls. Whatever you do, don't look behind you. The ball comes back fast. You can get your ojos knocked out. Yeah, I got it, Jose said vaguely, feeling the weight of the racket in his hand. He liked how it felt when he pounded the sweet spot of the strings against his palm. Freddie resumed lifting weights, and Jose biked home, swinging the racket as he rode. That night after dinner, Jose went outside and asked his father, Dad, has a girl ever beaten you in anything? So what does that mean Jose's thinking about? Yeah, I think you're right. He's thinking that she could beat me and I'm going to have to figure out how to handle it, or maybe I shouldn't play her or something. His father was watering the grass, his shirt off. His pale belly hung over his belt just slightly like a deflated ball. It's an interesting image. Only talking, he said. They can out-talk a man any day of the week. No, in sports, his father thought for a while and then said, No, I don't think so. His father's tone of voice didn't encourage Jose, so he took the racket and a tennis ball and began to practice against the side of the garage. The ball raced away like a rat. He retrieved it and tried again. Every time he hit it either too softly or too hard, and he couldn't get the rhythm of a rally going. It's hard, he said to himself, but then he remembered that he was playing with a tennis ball, not a racquetball. He assumed that he would play better with a real ball. The next day, school was as dull as usual. He took a test in history and returned to his regular score of 12 out of 20. Mrs. Flores was satisfied. I'll see you later, Estella said, hoisting her backpack onto her shoulder. The history quiz crumpled in her fist. I wonder why she's crumpling her quizzes up like that. That's kind of a weird thing that the author is mentioning, right? Okay, Stella, he said. Stinger, she corrected. Yeah, Stinger, 345. Jose was beginning to wonder whether he really liked her. Now she seemed abrupt, not cute. She was starting to look like Dolores, hitting Spit Ramirez tough. After school, Jose walked slowly to the outdoor three-walled courts. They were empty except for a gang of sparrows pecking at an old hamburger wrapper. Now remember, sparrows are a type of what? Bird, you're right. Jose practiced hitting the tennis ball against the wall. It was too confusing. The ball would hit the front wall, then ricochet off the side wall. He spent most of his time running after the ball or cursing himself or bragging that he had won tournaments. This may not end very well for Jose. Estella arrived, greeting Jose with a jerk of her chin and a "Hey, dude." She was dressed in white sweats. A pair of protective goggles dangled around her neck like a necklace, and she wore sweatbands on both wrists. She opened a can of balls and rolled one out into her palm, squeezing it so tightly that her forearm rippled with muscle. When she smacked the ball against the wall so hard that the echo hurt his ears, Jose realized that he was in trouble. He felt limp as a dead fish. Estella hit the ball repeatedly. When she noticed that Jose was just standing there, his racket in one hand and a dog-slobbered tennis ball in the other, she asked, Aren't you going to practice? I forgot my balls at home, he said. Help yourself. She pointed with the racket toward the can. Jose took a ball. She pointed with the racket toward the can. Jose took a ball, squeezed it, and bounced it once. He was determined to give Estella a show. He bounced it again, swung with all his might, and hit it out of the court. Oops, he said. I'll go get it, Stinger. He found the ball in the gutter, splotched with mud that he wiped off on his pants. When he returned to the court, Estella had peeled off her sweats excuse me, had peeled off her sweats and was working a pair of knee pads up her legs. Jose noticed that her legs were bigger than his, and they quivered like the flanks of a thoroughbred horse. These are some very interesting descriptions that he's giving us of Estella. She seems to me to be very strong and athletic and kind of intimidating. There's a picture on page 310 of her wearing her knee pads, and she looks very focused. She's got her goggles on, and you can kind of see Jose's expression there. He's kind of like, what did I do? I think his bragging is definitely getting him into trouble. So I wonder how this is going to end for Jose. You ready? So we're at the top of 311. You ready? She asked, adjusting her goggles over her eyes. I have to leave at 5. Almost, he said. He took off his shirt, then put it back on when he realized how skinny his chest was. Yeah, I'm ready. You go first. Estella, sizing him up, said, No, you go first. Jose decided to accept the offer. He figured he needed all the help he could get. He bounced the ball and served it into the ground twice. You're out, she said, scooping the ball up onto her racket and walking briskly to the service box. Jose wanted to ask why, but he kept quiet. He doesn't even know the rules of the game. After all, he thought, I am the winner of several tournaments, which was a lie. 0-0, Estella said, then served the ball, which ricocheted off the front and side walls. Jose swung wildly and missed by at least a foot. Then he ran after the ball, which had rolled out of the court onto the grass. He returned it to Estella and said, Nice, Estella. Stinger. Yeah, stinger. Estella called out. 1-0. Oh, sorry, I messed that up. 1-0. 1-0. So she's giving him the score. She wound up again and sizzled the ball right at Jose's feet. He swung and hit his kneecap with the racket. The pain jolted him like a shock of electricity as he went down, holding his knee and grimacing. Estella chased the ball for him. Can you play? She asked. He nodded as he rose to his feet. 2-0, she said, again bouncing the ball off the front wall, this time slower so that Jose swung before the ball reached his racket. He swung again, the racket spinning like a whirlwind. The ball sailed slowly past, and he had to chase it down again. I guess that's 3-0, right? Jose said lamely. Right. Estella lobbed the ball as it came down. Jose swung hard. His racket slipped from his fingers and flew out of the court. Oops, he said. The racket was caught on the top of the chain-link fence surrounding the courts. For a moment, Jose thought of pulling the racket down and running home, but he had to stick it out. Anyway, he thought, my backpack is at the court. Just a page and a half to go here. So I don't know how Jose is going to get out of this. Let's see what happens. 4-0, Estella called when she saw Jose running back to the court, his chest heaving. She served again, and Jose, closing his eyes, connected. The ball hit the wall, and for 3 seconds they had a rally going. But then Estella moved in and killed the ball with a low corner shot. 5-0, she said. It's getting cold. Let me get my sweats back on. She slipped into her sweats and threw off her sweatbands. Jose thought about asking to borrow the sweatbands because he had worked up a lather of sweat, but his pride kept him quiet. Estella served again and again until the score was 17-0, and Jose was ragged from running. He wished the game would end. He wished he would score just 1 point. He took off his shirt and said, Hey, you're pretty good. Estella served again, gently this time, and Jose managed to return the ball to the front wall. Estella didn't go after it, even though she was just a couple of feet from the ball. A nice corner shot, she lied. Your serve. Jose served the ball and, hunching over with his racket poised, took a crab step to the left, waiting for the ball to bounce off the front wall. Instead, he heard a thunderous smack and felt himself leap like a trout. The ball had hit him in the back, and it stung viciously. He ran off the court and threw himself on the grass, grimacing from the pain. It took him 2 minutes to recover, time enough for Estella to take a healthy swig from her water bottle in her sport bag. Finally, through his teeth, he muttered, Good shot, Stinger. I bet that's why she got her name. Sorry, Estella said. You moved into my lane. Serve again. Jose served and then cowered out of the way, his racket held to his face for protection. She fired the ball back clean and low, and once again she was standing at the service line calling, "Service." Uncle Freddie was right. He had lost 21 to nada. After a bone-jarring handshake and a pat on his aching back from Estella, he hobbled to his uncle's house, feeling miserable. Poor Jose. Only 3 weeks ago he'd been hoping that Estella Stinger might like him. Now he hoped she would stay away from him. Oh dear, he's changed his mind. Uncle Freddie was in the garage lifting weights. Without greeting him, Jose hung the racket back on the wall. Uncle Freddie lowered the weights, sat up, and asked, "So how'd it go?" Jose didn't feel like lying. He lifted his t-shirt and showed his uncle the big red mark the ball had raised on his back. "She's bad." "It could have been your face," Freddie said as he wiped away sweat and lay back down on his bench. "Too bad." Jose sat on a pile of bundled newspapers, hands in his lap. When his uncle finished his reps, so he's doing some weightlifting there, Jose got up slowly and peeled the weights down to 60 pounds. It was his turn to lift. He needed strength to mend his broken heart and for the slight chance that Stinger might come back looking for another victory. And that's the way it ended. So Jose got himself into some trouble bragging about something that he really didn't do. So that's a good lesson for us to learn from, right? All right, so remember, you have an assignment for this reading selection. You've got to answer 3 or 4 questions here on page 314, so you get to choose those. And then you also have your workbook pages, so make sure you complete the workbook pages that go along with this story. Feel free to send me a message if you have a question, if you don't understand any of the workbook pages, and keep working hard. It's going to pay off, I promise. Talk to you soon.